And I think that part of it was like people have asked me if that was like, oh, was this on purpose? And it's like, yes, like it's pretty evident, I think, that it was on purpose, but it's more about, this is always meant to be like a super group in terms of it being about having women that were on top of their just super, super special.
Okay, I think we have, do we have audio? I think we have audio.
We have audio.
Can you hear us?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Miss Blue Bonanza in the house.
Only Blue Bonanza. We're psyched to have the Blue Bonanza.
Yes, we're psyched to have you here.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Whatever this podcast is, we don't even know what it is anymore, but we're excited.
Hey, man, I remember when podcasts were barely a thing. In like 2005, there was this one called Audio Crush that was based out of Boston that I like loved. And it was pretty much just like four guys completely shooting the shit. And the idea behind it was that people would call in anonymously and like confess, I don't know, some like secret. There's a whole when the Post Secret book came out and everything. Audio Crush was like the online version, like the podcast version of that. Like they'd have these voicemails and they would just like go through the voicemails and talk about the stuff that people would leave on them and like the secrets that people were admitting. But they only really got to 3 of them an episode, and the rest of the time it was just like, who even knows what's going on?
Yeah, I kind of like that though. We tried to be structured at first, and I was like, let's just do whatever. Like, let's just whatever naturally happens. It's more exciting that way.
Yeah, I think so, man.
I think we're gonna steal that idea. I'm putting that on the docket. We're gonna start doing
the docket.
I mean, man, Audio Crush is not a thing anymore. So I don't even know if you can get the archived episodes, which makes me sad because I swear
we're gonna carry the torch. We're gonna continue the legacy.
Absolutely.
Moretti. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Moretti.
Yes.
I'm a freaking idiot.
There's no I in there. What do you
no
want?
I in there, bro.
There's an I. What are you talking about?
It says right here, Lee Moretti.
I don't know why I read that Moretti. I guess I expected you to be like, I'm sure you're full-blooded Italian, maybe not. I don't know.
Actually, yeah.
Full blood.
That's why I thought you were full-blooded. I felt like an extra I was warranted. So Moretti, you know what I mean?
You know what it is actually? Usually people get that because they're familiar with Sherlock Holmes.
I was gonna say Sherlock
Holmes. The
first
thing they think about is Moriarty.
Exactly. I think that's
amazing.
What I'm thinking, for sure. Yeah, thank you so much for being on the show. We both listened to your EP. It is freaking amazing.
Amazing. Capital A.
Unbelievable. It's like, I know it's like people, what's in your playlist right now. This is going to be it for the next like at least couple weeks. And so you guys have the harmonies were so amazing. Chord changes were really good. I know I might be jumping the gun here. I know Derek has a formula here. I might be jumping the gun. Derek.
Yeah, you're ruining my whole formula. But go ahead. Proceed.
I'm really screwing it up. Derek, you take it. And I'm jumping. This is like 10
No. Finish your thought, and then I will go back to structure.
That's going to be that's the preview. That like you see a preview for a trailer, a movie. That's the trailer. All right, there you go. That's it.
Well, yeah, number one, I mean, the first thing we have to mention, I know you're probably going to be annoyed with this because everyone probably asks you this, but you are backup musician for a very popular band.
Yes.
Tell us a little about that experience. That's just off the bat. I'm already baffled. Like that's just amazing. Like I want to hear.
No. You know what? I to be honest, like I never begrudge anyone for asking me, and the truth is, I never get tired of talking about it. If only because, those are such formative years of my life, and it really was like the first big jumping off point for me as a performer. So basically, if I do the long story short here, yes, I was the backup multi-instrumentalist, the touring multi-instrumentalist for Third Eye Blind for a couple years. I started by filling in for them on bass when they let their bass player go. And then I kind of just started Steven started inviting me to shows to come and sit in on like, hey, you play piano? Hey, you want to sing backup vocals? Hey, do you want to, and I just started kind of sitting in. Actually, if I back up, the first thing that happened was that I was in a band. I was the lead guitar player for a band that was actually opening up for Third Eye Blind for a while, based out of New York, a band called The Upwelling, actually. And after I was with them for like a year, and we did like I think 3 tours with Third Eye, and I ended up parting ways from them. But after that, Steven and I kept in touch, and the first thing I actually did was send him some like songs that I was working on, and to try to get his input, which he was like very sweet and forthcoming about, and he was actually like really excited. The first thing he and I talked about was him like producing my songs actually, but then some other stuff started to happen in his group, so he started to just ask me to come and play. And then eventually, and I remember this so clearly because I had just, little known fact, I actually had malignant melanoma when I was 23. And it wasn't, I don't talk about it much because it's not like I didn't have to have chemo. I didn't have to go through the things that people who have cancer, who end up having cancer, have to go through.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It was very formative stages. It was like lucky, you caught it kind of thing. You know, I had to just do like an outpatient. They have to basically just take a chunk like of my leg out. It's not even noticeable now, but then it's like I had like, you know, a big bandage and stuff, and people were asking me what happened, and I kept telling people I got stabbed by like a mafioso, you know, because it's Italian. I was like, that tracks, right? Somebody's got to think my family.
That story connects well.
Yeah, but so I didn't tell anybody why, but I remember because Steven called me, I think that day, to come and be at a show in New York that was like the day after. And I was like, man, I was in Boston. I was like, I just had this surgery. Like, I don't know if I can do it. And he was like, okay, normally I would totally understand, but like, if you can be here, like you should be here. And I was like, okay. And it turned, of course I love Steven to death, but he's not one for like giving people the details.
Right.
So I show up to this Crash Mansion gig, and it turns out it's being taped for Best Buy, of all things. So it's like, yeah, my friend told me months later, he's like, I just saw you on a Best Buy TV. You want to tell me like what that's about? And I was like, oh, but that was the night, actually, I met Rachel Maddow that night because Steven and she are friends. And that was the night he told me, he was like, okay, the real reason I want you here is because we're going to invite you on the road. And I wanted it to be tonight that I told you that, you know, we want to take you out. And I was like,
dude,
okay.
that's
So
awesome.
And to be honest, I really didn't expect it, if I'm being honest. I thought it was just going to keep being like, you know, when they're around, maybe they'll ask me to come and play and stuff. But no, it was a wonderful experience. And Steven to this day, and the band in general, are friends of mine. I tend to see them, at least when they come through, you know, and it's funny because Steven then introduced me to Chris Carrabba from Dashboard Confessional, who he and I connected actually very well, and I find him to be a fucking, I can swear on the show, right?
As much as you want. We encourage it.
Lovely human being, and actually he was just recently in a motorcycle accident, which he's going to recover from, but like, you know, anybody here is a Dashboard fan, go on Chris Carrabba's Instagram and give him some love because he's going through like physical therapy right now. And,
oh, wow. Yeah, that's more like my friend got me into it. Like it was, you know, not too much these days, but I remember in high school, you know, my friends would listen to it a lot. So I listened to him back then.
Yeah.
You know, that's great. It's good that he's going to recover though. Yeah,
he's going to be okay, like thankfully. But, and it's funny because when the Furies first like dropped, Steven and the band like produced our first single, which actually isn't really available anywhere anymore. I might release it separately, but Steven produced it, and it was when my guitar player and I were just a duo. So the band played on the song, and Steven played tambourine, which was super cute. And when we had our single release, I wasn't touring with the band anymore, but they were playing a show. I remember this so clearly. We had a release at the Hard Rock, and Third Eye Blind was playing at, I think, Northeastern the same night. Wow. And so he called me and he was like, hey, you want to come play Northeastern? And I was like, I so want to, but there's no way I'm going to be able to make the timing work. I'm probably going to be playing at the same time you guys are.
Oh,
but
right.
What ended up happening is that their set was actually pretty early, and they came to my show after. He just showed up at the Hard Rock. He didn't even tell me he was coming. Just shows up at the Hard Rock, and of course, like some fans like caught wind of where he was going to be, so other people were like following him into the venue.
No way.
Let me ask you about Hard Rock, because our band has been offered to play Hard Rock maybe like 2 times since we've been together, and we always turn it down because we're like, it seems like a really hard room to fill up.
Yeah, it is. You know, Yeah, honestly, the Hard Rock is a really tricky one in my experience. The only reason I even did it then was because they had the date that I really wanted. It was like, I think it was either like a Friday or a Saturday, and I couldn't really, there weren't any other clubs for some, I don't remember if I just booked it out like too soon or something, but there weren't any other clubs that had the date except the Hard Rock. And I was nervous about it then because it's not easily accessible by T. You know, it's the parking down there is stupid. It's like very bad. You know, I think that if you have the sound there, though, if you get one of the really great sound guys, the room sounds incredible as long as you've got a dude, either your own engineer or one of the guys that was really, honestly, I don't think he works there anymore, unfortunately. But there's a guy named Anthony that was one of the front of house guys for the Hard Rock, and he was so good. But yeah, I mean, their system is great, and their hospitality is actually great. You know, they do the whole thing that people should be doing when you have when you have like a rider and all that other kind of shit. But no, the room itself can be very difficult, and I think you have to kind of plan it a little bit ahead. That being said, though, if you've got a good lineup and you feel really confident about people wanting to go and enough time to promote it, I think it can be a great experience, because I would say that it feels full with like 100 people in the room. But I think the capacity there is something like 300 something.
Right. So unfortunately, and you and I would think that was great, and then the promoter would be like, well,
right.
Yeah.
No. And that's the problem. Like we played the Middle East upstairs, downstairs a bunch of times, and even upstairs it was absolutely packed. And he's like, there's still room for 80 more people. And I'm like, I guess.
I know. And that's a real shame. And you know what? It speaks to like the whole club bottom line problem. And honestly, like, and now I've seen that from both sides, because I was like and I don't even know how many people know this, but a couple of years ago, I was running some clubs in New York. I was managing and booking for the Bowery Electric and what is now called Lola, but was called Coney Island Baby. You know, the fact of the matter is that they really they just decided we're not going to rely on income from shows at all. Like, just the bar. Dude. Like, they need to have enough people to make money at the bar. We are not, aside from like taking enough to pay our sound guy, we don't care. That was basically there. And honestly, I kind of think that that's the state of live music, at least at the local level right now, is that I don't understand why venues think that that they're going to be able to, in a lot of cases, really make money from the door. Like, the door should really be, or whatever the case may, pre-sale, whatever, that should really be for the artist, and maybe to take out your sound guy expense if the sound guy's from the house, you know?
Exactly.
I want to make a commercial of you saying this and just spread it around the world.
Oh my God.
It's just, you know what the truth is? Most venues in New York work that way. I don't understand why venues in Boston and Rhode Island think that they should do something differently, because honestly, they kind of shouldn't. Like,
you're totally right about that. And it's so crazy that you mentioned New York does that way, because I've visited New York a bunch of times, Brooklyn, and all that good stuff, and they just have a way better music scene. There's just so much more going on there in terms of like where, you know, seeing bands live. Like we talked about this a few episodes ago, like this music scene in Boston is kind of like in shambles right now. It's like a lot of these clubs are closing down. To me, and I don't know, you might have a different experience from your perspective, but from my perspective, I think that the music scene, the local music scene in Boston is kind of dwindling, and it's a shame.
You know, and this is really unfortunate, because like I went to Berkeley, right? And here are the facts for what I can understand anecdotally from back when I was in college to now. I'm gonna get a little political. Marty Walsh and Charlie Baker were not in charge of the city and the state. Because right now, the problem is that the development in Boston is driving people out. The prices are insane. And that's because of the fact that the mayor and the governor don't have enough respect for the arts culture that exists in the city. You know, a lot of my friends who lived in Boston, a few of my college people, ended up in Rhode Island, you know, where I'm from, where I currently am, you know, the Providence area, because down here it's still cheap. You know, not for long maybe, but like, you know, and I think that really affects the art culture.
Oh my God. That's sorry to interrupt, but I was gonna say that's the first thing that goes, you know, when you're driving people out, the first thing that suffers is like the arts, you know, that's like the most, fund scare. They're scarce with funding, obviously.
Oh, and school. It starts with schools too. The first thing that goes is the arts, drama, all that stuff.
They're the most fragile, of the academics, I guess you could call it, whatever, or even just professions. Even it's just the most fragile financially. And you throw on top of that rising housing prices, just driving people out. There's no wonder why the music scene is suffering.
And we've heard Providence because this is crazy, but we've met more people doing this podcast than in real life.
I believe you,
because we play shows with bands and we're like, oh, hello, like great set, and they're like, oh yeah, you too, and that's it. But then we have them back on here and then we talk to them for an hour and we're like, you're so cool, like but we heard that Providence, Rhode Island is really kicking for the music scene, and we're kind of jealous because we're like, kind of stinks it, especially in northern Boston, like the North Shore. It sucks right now. Even people from the South Shore are like, it's great down here, and I'm like, damn it.
Well, we want to go down there. I don't know if I'm sure you've had maybe some that chime in on that, because because you're from there, obviously. So maybe I don't know have you noticed that it's maybe a little bit different from Boston to the South Shore?
Yeah, I honestly think that I don't know as much as I should about the different parts of Massachusetts. I will say something interesting about Worcester. Worcester's like had a real arts burgeoning over the past, like, I want to say decade. And I find that very exciting, especially in their spoken word and like poetry scene situation. Like they're really like on board. And I think that actually I don't know who their mayor is, or I don't know what their like cultural infrastructure is, but they've like put, like, we were on something that was made by the Worcester Arts Council. We were on a show for them, like a summer concert series kind of thing, like a couple years ago. And like, they really put a lot of effort into making sure that like bands get paid and that it's like actually like supported by the system and by the city. So there was like, a lot of like promotion that went into it. And so, and it's interesting because I think it really depends whether or not music flourishes in a city has a lot to do with the priorities of the government in that city in a lot of cases. Wow. And then even if people are even if like there's a thriving thing that happens kind of in spite of that, there needs to be some support externally somehow. Right. Whether that's a fluke, whether that's just like local business owners being like, well, fuck the government. I love this thing that's happening right now, or whatever. The support needs to come from somewhere, or eventually it'll die because, as bands, we're basically all tiny little startups,
Yeah.
We need encouragement. We need places to play. And like, even when you have some resources or connections or whatever the case may be, it's like, if you're in a place where nothing is supporting you as a business, shit's just going to die. People will move. People will go somewhere where they feel supported.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Well said. That's like such a good perspective to have. It's just like any industry, it needs some, you could have those flukes, those little pop-ups here and there, the anomalies, but to really foster a meaningful growth in the art scene, you really need some support from the government. Funding. It all comes down to funding.
Really
and it's a really good point, and I think it makes perfect sense now that you said that. Why we're seeing what we're seeing in the Boston area, at least.
Yeah, I will say a lot for Providence in the sense that Providence started prioritizing the arts when I would say, at least when I was a kid, like in the 90s coming up, like maybe you've heard of Waterfire, this insane thing that people don't really know how to like talk about what the hell it is, but there's a river, there's a river that runs through Providence and goes kind of through the city and then out to like the actual little Bay Area or whatever. And basically Waterfire is like a nonprofit that puts a bunch of torches in that water system and lights them on fire in the summer. So it becomes like a big fire walk. And there's like, a lot of ambient music playing. It's sort of like a cult-ish, but they let a whole bunch of street performers come. People can basically come and perform and like do their art. And then they have like a few times, my father's also a musician professionally. So a few times they've had like some really big, like salsa bands, jazz bands, like making it a big block party, like that whole kind of thing. So, when you have a city that is trying, to include art and commerce and differentiate themselves that way, it makes a big difference.
Yeah, I'm always looking around for towns that are getting hip. around here, especially. Like, I don't know if you're too familiar. You're not too familiar, but there's a city, Lynn, Massachusetts.
I do know Lynn.
Yeah. My wife grew up in Lynn, and as years go by, I keep noticing how it's just getting more artsy. There's paintings on like structures outside. There's more venues opening, and it's like there's breweries opening, and it's like it's becoming Salem almost, or it's trying to become Salem. And I'm like, that's so cool. I wish more towns would try this. Because when I'm in Salem, I feel like I'm on vacation, even though I'm just going there for a night to play. Because I'm into that whole thing. I love that. When I'm there, I feel like a weird spirituality or something. I can't explain it.
No, totally. Salem's totally the vibe in that way, for sure.
When I was a kid, I used to dream of like playing in Salem and like a Friday night, and then all of a sudden we started doing that, and I was like, I want more now. But yeah, it's so cool. We definitely have to take a trip down to Rhode Island because we keep going north. We're like, yeah, we should go to New Hampshire, and I'm like, maybe we should go south. It just seems cool down there. So that river sounds amazing.
Yeah, water fire is definitely the thing. And the people who are from here, it's gotten so big that the people who are from here are like, I don't want to go. Like, I'm not going to Providence tonight. There's a water fire. Like, that's the thing that people say because, the traffic is insane. The crowds are insane. But I still think it's like if you haven't experienced it, it's definitely a cool thing to experience, to come and be a part of. But yeah, I guess back to your original point, I definitely feel what you're saying because obviously New York has had these like structures in place. And although it's incredibly competitive and it's kind of dog eat dog out there just because the saturation of things going on is just so high, it still has a better chance for things to, flourish. And
100%. And we all need the correct leadership.
Get somebody in office who's a musician or an artist or a painter.
I think instead of making a podcast, maybe we should form our own lobbying group.
Yes.
That's the thing with like, with people, if you want to change something in the government, protesting has its place for sure. But I think the most meaningful action is if you like are able to make your own lobbying group. I know like lobbying gets a bad name because the most of the lobbying comes from the huge organizations, but there's nothing stopping smaller grassroots people from forming their own lobbying group too. So I think like
true.
This disdain of government, but if you want to change the government, you kind of have to become part of the government to change within. And I think that's the most meaningful change you can accomplish by just changing from within instead of from within. So something to think about. I think maybe we'll convert the podcast into a lobbying group.
Yeah.
There you go.
Have Lee as our chairwoman, sorry. And she'll lead the charge, all that good stuff.
It's funny you said chairman and then you changed it to chairwoman. I still have this thing where like when we're on here with we had a band on here, Circus Trees, and they're 3 teenage girls. And I kept calling them guys the whole time just because I'm accustomed to saying that to people when there's a group of people. Sure. I'm like, hey guys, so what do you think, guys? And I would be like, so what do you guys think, girls? It was so awkward.
It's tough, right? Because I grew up saying that too. I use dude as like a gender neutral term, but it's like
I think guys is gender neutral. Hey, what's up, guys?
Yeah,
gender neutral.
And I think it always depends on who you're talking to. I think it's gotta, we gotta rely on each other to tell each other what our like preferred,
right?
Whether it's pronoun or whether it's like group name, what the preference.
I totally made it more awkward by saying girls though.
Yeah, well, just because it's like it's a little odd. It's like you're like pinpointing.
So you girls, it seemed so. Afterwards, I was talking to Steve and I was like, "Can you edit all the times I say girls out?"
It took me 3 hours. Meticulously.
Oh man,
I'm just kidding. Kidding.
Yeah.
All right, let's go deep dive into Omens right now.
Yes. Oh. Before we even go into the music, the album cover is so cool.
Wait. Okay. Before we even talk about the album cover.
No. Before you even say anything, Steve.
All right, we'll do the album cover first, but then I want to cover the band name because I did some like Wikipedia on the band name, and is there some Roman mythology going on there?
Correct.
It is some cool shit. So if you guys want to do the cover first, then we'll go into the Roman Greek mythology part after. We can do that.
Gladly.
Wherever you want to start.
Yeah, no, I can go one into the other. So that cover, I'm so proud of it because it's art that we licensed from an artist, and I hope I don't botch his name, but he's a Korean artist. His name is Doi Hyun, and he is located in North Carolina, and that's his painting. It's called Of Wind and Water. And the Furies have that license specifically for us in terms of like as a musician entity. So that's like, you know, we but like I was so happy that he has his own gallery and he's widely popular, as he should be. He does kind of the whole surrealism sort of thing.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of surrealism. That's why I
too,
probably like it so much.
Yeah, big time. So Wind and Water really caught my eye when I was looking, you know, for a decent cover. At first I was like thinking about commissioning something. And then like, but the thing is, once I saw his art, I just started scrolling through and I was like, oh my God, this is just like perfect. You know, and I ran it past the band and they were all for it. But because the thing about
I'm sorry. I was gonna say send us a link. We'll if you want, we can post it in the post. So like, I'd like to check them out myself too.
Please, yeah. I actually, I can send you a link after we're done. Just to
absolutely.
Yeah, because his wife runs his gallery. It's actually a very sweet thing. But I contacted them and they were like, "Oh yeah, we would love to license to you," and it was just the perfect fit, really. Because one thing I love about his artwork is that he has a really great way of everything he does has sort of like a little more of a feminine quality, but it's not like, it still also feels like very haunting and a little bit kind of, there's something kind of like emotional and even jagged about it, you know? So it felt really good to me because, you know, that's kind of what I wanted for the album cover. It's like, you know, it's like I want something that feels haunting, but also feels like sort of vaguely, I guess, feminine, you know?
Very
Absolutely.
cool.
Yeah, and that's what I look for too. Like our music is like, I don't know, it's like rock, funk, psychedelic something, I don't know. But I always write dark lyrics and I always want dark art to go with it. Even though it doesn't go with it, I just, like, for me, like if I could use a Salvatore Dali painting for every single album, I would do that.
Yes, but, no, I totally feel you. I love Magritte myself, the French guy. But to transition into the name, yeah, the Furies, the Greek goddesses of justice and vengeance, specifically. They are supposed to haunt specifically anyone who has sworn a false oath.
I read that. Yeah, that was like so cool. They live like under the earth, right? And it's like they come up when someone goes against their oath.
Yep.
That's really cool.
Hey, do you have fascination with Greek goddesses and like mythological?
Yeah, you know, when I was a kid, I absolutely loved it. And the truth is, like, I've read a lot of because of where I went to school, I ended up reading a lot of you know, the tragedies, Iphigenia at Aulis, all that other kind of stuff. So I think the Greek thing, and my sophomore year, I had a wonderful English teacher named Mr. Shotwell. I'm going to plug him right now because he's a genius. But we spent the entire year on the Odyssey, actually.
Yeah.
And that's a very, very deceptively important work, actually, to be honest. And after that, you know, I've sort of always kept tabs on all kinds of mythology, really. I've always been into it. I love astrology and I love tarot and I love all that kind of stuff. It's stuff I've actually been studying since I was a kid, kind of like a hobby. But like, but yeah, the Furies actually, I was talking to my best friend, Neil, who's also my business partner in an entertainment company we own called Harvard Entertainment. And I was talking to him about the idea for this band. This is a very, very long time ago. And one day the name just popped into my head. I was like, hey, I think I have a name for this band. And then that was it. But like, I was like, yeah, that fits. I don't see how it doesn't.
Nice. It pops. I really like it. I like the history of it. I like the way it sounds. But
it's cool though too, because I started to interrupt you. Actually, you know what? I don't care that I interrupt you.
Good.
I find a cool connection because, like, when I saw the cover, it felt like home to me because I'm so into surrealism and that type of thing. And I try to, for our album Mariana, I'm infatuated with the Marianas Trench. The bottom of the ocean really makes me nervous and it kind of scares me, and that's why I like it. So I try to create my own goddess. I called her Mariana, and it's kind of cool connection that you're into that too. So I don't know. I just thought I'd bring that up, but
that's awesome. Good for you, man. I think because the problem is that the biggest issue I think in music is whenever anyone does something that actually doesn't resonate with them, but they want to be cool, so they do it anyway. You know, I think the only point in trying to do something in this medium is to try to do something that really does resonate with you. you know, and you guys obviously musicians too. So it's like, you know, I don't know how well that tracks with you, but I probably have a thousand song ideas or something that are just like, and some of them I'll never go back to because I'm just like, oh, garbage.
Right.
And that's not always the case, but you know, when you hit something that really like hits the spot, you usually know, just sort of like instinctively. You know?
For sure.
Do you finish like for me it's difficult because like I said you said I have a million song ideas, but I'll have them on my phone and you know I'll send them to Steve. I'll send Steve 15 songs and he'll say these 7 are really really good, right? But do you have somebody that like that you do that with, or do you just decide yourself? No, I'm going to do this one.
No, I always bounce it off the band, especially now. Like we're getting a lot more heavily into co-writing. The next record is going to have it's going to be much more heavily arranged by the group as a whole. The first EP, Omens, was mostly arranged by myself primarily, and then Sonia, my previous guitar player, who's ta-da!
Oh, you're back. You're back.
I
just messaged you. I just wrote, you froze.
That's so weird because I was totally not frozen on my end and you guys froze, which is so strange. I don't understand how Zoom works is really what it comes down to.
I don't know if it's a coincidence, but I just, all I did was click my browser because I was like, I have your Wikipedia page as for a reference. So I was going to pretend like I know so much information. I'm like, oh, that reminds me of this, that. How do you know these things? I just know. So I clicked on the browser, and a second I did that, you froze. But why would that do that? Why would just clicking on?
No, it doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't make
any sense. So maybe it's just a coincidence.
What was the last thing? The last thing we heard was
Sonia. Talking about Sonia.
Yes.
Oh yeah. So yes, Sonia is some. We have this saying in the band. It's like once a fury, always a fury. We've had some people come kind of in and out or whatever. And the truth of the matter is that if you have contributed in a big way to the group, then to me you're always considered as like part of the group. You know, we've invited cast members on stage before. We've like, you know, had them partner up and be like a part of recordings before, and Sonia's no exception. You know, she definitely she and I'll sit down and co-write just randomly, and I tend to run stuff by her even still. But currently, as like I run things by my bass player Gabby a lot. I run them by my drummer especially. I definitely always look for feedback because one thing that I am completely sure of is that I am not the best judge of my own work. I've had songs I've been like, this is garbage, and people would be like, no.
Yeah.
It's good.
Oh, and it's very upsetting when it's the opposite too.
It is too. It's very upsetting.
If you have a baby and you bring it to them and they're like, meh, I'm like, well, this practice is over because you just broke my heart.
I'm leaving.
Yeah.
Do you have any specific songs on the record that are just like, ugh, they're just your baby and it's your favorite?
Yeah, for sure. I would honestly say that you know, oh man, this is actually kind of hard. So
I want to guess.
Yeah, please guess which ones are my favorite. That's cool.
Oh man,
numbers, is it 2? I'm guessing 2 songs.
Guess 2.
Or is it more?
It's actually, I think, 3 of them. Yeah.
All right.
I'm gonna go ahead and say Promises is one of them.
Yes, that's very true.
Damn it. I was gonna say Hunter and Enemies Now.
Both, you guys are correct.
Ooh.
Was that the 3?
Yeah, those are the 3.
Okay. What do we win? Oh, that's so cool because that's like
3 tickets to our next show.
Yes.
Oh my God.
We're there.
We'll take it. We're gonna be there. That's so fun. We do this a lot. Like one of our last guests, like Derek and I were like, we always pick our favorite songs, and we both one time picked the same 2 songs in the whole album, and we're like, how does that happen?
Yeah, it was like a 13-track album, and I called Steve before, and we Zoomed beforehand, and I was like, here are my 2 favorites, and he was like, here are my 2 favorites, the exact same 2, and we're like, this is the first time this has ever happened. We're like, our synergy. I don't know, something stupid.
Synergy, man. No, those songs in particular, I know that like they particularly resonated with me, and just the album as a whole, it just reminds me of the kind of music scene I'm used to, because I grew up going to like Fish shows and Dave Matthews and kind of more of the jam band kind of stuff, but also jazz and rock. And like I said, Third Eye Blind is growing up. I thought they were really, really good band. I was a huge fan. But now that I know your EP, it's just like it's carrying. To me, it's a blend because I listen to your chord changes and your choruses are completely unique and original. In the way you compose the song, I'm a huge fan of like little things, like little changes in a song. I'm like, oh, did you hear that? Like just 2-second thing right there. And I did that quite a few times on this EP, and I think I was, not to over describe it to death, but I just thought this EP was brilliant. I had such a good experience listening to it. The harmonies were super tight. The music, everything. If I had one word to describe it, it'd just be tight.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we worked very hard. Oh, you know what? It's actually kind of a little bit of a crazy thing because that first EP to me was like, okay, we need to represent what the band sounds like live, right? Like we need to represent the thing that we're coming to with a live show. So that means, not a lot of the extra crazy production that people tend to do. But there was a lot of like overdubs and a lot of like, we were very finicky about the guitar parts, and then the cello came last actually. And in a lot of cases with my cellist, I like threw her in the studio and was like, okay, play stuff, and we'll like play everything that you can think of, and then we're gonna narrow it down. Was basically the way I approached that, and we did it at Woolly Mammoth actually in Waltham.
You're like the 5th person to mention Woolly Mammoth record. They're
like man. We're gonna go back in August and do the next record, and we're gonna be doing it there because I love that man, and I am not afraid to say it.
Everyone says that. Everyone's been saying that.
Like one of the single best experiences I've had in the studio. I am very like finicky again. I'm very finicky about like studio vibe. I cannot work with one of these stick up their asses engineers. It's like, I am paying you. Let's get this relationship
right.
Okay? It's like, I am paying you. Therefore, you being a dick has no place here.
Right.
Exactly.
So, but no, Dave, perfect person to engineer the record. And he is just so open and so positive and has an excellent ear and is able to sort of give kind of some arrangement advice kind of on the fly. Actually, the reason why the bass part on Hunter is 8th notes, or quarter notes, 8th notes, I don't know, I can blah, blah, whatever. The reason why it pulses the way that it does is really because of Dave. Before then, my bass player was playing something else, and he was like, yeah, I think we might need a little more movement for this set. Yeah. Wow.
That's so
and they were just very small things, small changes that we just made in the studio that were really because of him and because of us being like, oh, so you think that, so what about this? And him being like, yeah, I think that's like a great thing. And you can only do that with certain kinds of people, And it's funny to me that Like Attracts Like, because our EP was mixed by Sean Beresford, who's the producer, one of the producers for Third Eye Blind, and he's worked with like Vanessa Carlton and Run DMC and stuff, and Prince, I think, too. But
Prince.
Sean is the one who mixed the record, and it was so funny because he got the files from Dave because they had been talking and blah blah blah, and Sean was like, and I was like, okay, so how did the files look to you? Because he's in California, he's really far, and he was like, what's really weird? He was like, these files are labeled exactly the same way that I would label them. And the thing that's bizarre about that is I do things kind of funny. So this guy, he and I.
That's cool. It's funny you mentioned that, like it's your time and you're paying for it, right? Mm-hmm. It always makes me wonder, because I'm sure there are some producers out there who, because they know that you're paying for it, they give you full reign, as well they should. But I feel like if I was somebody like that, I don't know how far I would be like, hey, let's try this. How much of that do you put in without the band being like, hey, listen, this is my record, I will decide. So that's kind of collaborate.
I think it depends on the kind of relationship you want to have with that producer. I made it very clear to Dave, like from basically going in, that I really wanted more input from a production standpoint. And that I felt, because he and I had these long conversations before I decided to work with him. And I was like, I feel like I really trust your opinion, which is very difficult for me because I have difficulty trusting anybody's opinion in this business.
Right. Don't blame you.
Yeah, and so I think that if you establish that relationship beforehand, and I guess even if you're not personally paying for it, like, you know, we have a label and a management company now, but it's like if it's somebody's money, or even if the producer is just doing it for points, you know, it's like this is an exchange, dude.
Right.
Like, if you're coming in here and you're being a part of this, then you should be a part of it. Otherwise, don't.
Right. Let me ask you something. Do you think, because I've been struggling with this for a while, we've been label-less since we've been together, and recently I'm trying to promote our band through Facebook and whatever, and it's just, you know, it's just not enough. Even playing live shows, I came to the realization that I was like, you know what, we need some sort of marketing engine behind us, or else our music's not going to get out there to the people because we can release an album and then we're proud of it, and then we realize that nobody heard it. So do you think that every band should really like put in effort to get a marketing team behind them?
Yeah, I mean, so it's a really difficult call. I think, though, that even if you're really great, like you've got really good traction online and all this other stuff, I think the difficulty comes in with the fact that Facebook, Instagram, all of these social media platforms are basically constantly dwarfing their algorithm, like basically making it really hard for people to break through by themselves. So the reason why, in a way, the reason why you need a team is because you need extra force. You know, I don't think many bands can really break through on their own without honestly kind of a little bit of luck. And I would say that in terms of marketing, like either having a specialist kind of in charge of your social media or hiring a publicist is really a way to go. Because the thing about publicists is that they know their whole job is creating a story for the group. So it's like if you're marketing a single, if you're marketing the press in a way is really very important, because that's like the hype for the group, you know.
Right.
Is the press, and that's actually also what helps gain traction in terms of social media, is the kind of visibility you have, not just on social media, but in other platforms that are on the internet, you know. So we have this whole thing, right? Pixar, it didn't happen. Like people want to see that your presence in the world is something that they should be paying attention to.
Right.
The only way to document that well is to have other people doing it.
That's super insightful. It's almost like I'm having a conversation with Facebook, because I'm like, I'm going to make this post on my band page. And it's like, Facebook's like, okay, go for it. You're going to get like 3 views. I'm like, you know what? Fuck you, Facebook. I'm going to do it on my regular page. And they're like, well, you're going to get a lot more views, but if you want to do it through your the band page, you just put in $10 and we'll help you.
Yeah, tell me about it. It's like really, and honestly, speaking from the perspective, we didn't have the whole label and management company thing. We always had backup in the form of Harbinger Entertainment, which is the company that I also co-own, which was really helpful, because the fact of the matter is, you really can't do it yourself. You're going to hit a wall sooner or later, because it's going to be about just only having so much capacity as a human being for this shit.
Yep.
Because like, I don't want to be running a show, you know what I mean? And then walking on stage, which is something that I've done before. But like, if I'm distracted, I'm not going to give a great performance, at least by my standards, you know? Right. And I've been through that enough times where it's like, it's harrowing. And it actually, I think sometimes as musicians, we think we have like constantly renewable energy source within us about this stuff. But the fact of the matter is that like the psychic toll that it takes over time really diminishes your capacity to do things at 100%.
Right.
And that's where you get musicians who are like, I quit music. I quit. I'm done. And I think that's honestly not because they've like given up from a traditional perspective, just because they can't take it anymore.
Yeah. Right. No, I actually have a friend who's done that, and he's super talented, and he's like, I'm done with this industry. It's just, it's hard. It's I feel like that for me too. Like, I feel like 4 or 5 years ago, I was writing songs like it was like walking. And now that I've started a book for the band and started to look into the analytics of Facebook and doing all this sort of background stuff, I realized I'm like, we don't release stuff that often, and it's becoming harder to do things. And my focus isn't on the music anymore. And if I get 20 likes on a Facebook post about my band, I'm like, wow, today was a win. But that's sad.
Well, I don't about that, man. I think that the truth of the matter is that we need to come to terms with the fact that it's not just our industry, it's the sort of global economic situation has really screwed our generation in a lot of ways. It is very difficult because if you go back to looking at the whole band as a small business thing, as like a startup, this is the thing that startups and small businesses are suffering from globally. The inability to gain traction, the inability to find funding, the inability to find a place in an economy that's oversaturated. And the truth is sometimes it's like, is it like, how oversaturated is it though? Or are they just keeping people from poking through because the people at the top don't want the people that are in the middle or at the bottom getting a bigger slice of the pie, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know, this honestly, not to like try to make it macro, I guess, but this goes all the way back to the middle class being squeezed out, to us having a larger class divide. And it's reflected in our industry in some very specific ways. And it's in the inability to get backup, to get support, the way that it would have happened, I would argue, pre-Napster, and even up to about 10 years ago. Because even up to about like 10 years ago, there were like, you know, bands were getting signed as much, but they were getting some backup. They were getting some tour support, you know, and the way that, and now it's just not like that.
It's such a like depressing outlook for everybody. It's just like when you think about it, like you look at these trends pre-Napster, even 10 years ago, if look at it on a graph, right? I feel like the traction, ability to get traction as a small band or whatever would just be like this, just like going down until.
Yeah, I think that's true. And at the same time, though, I think that the tricky part that I think we all should remember is that things can only be the way they are for so long before something starts to crack, you know?
Exactly.
And up until then, you basically just have to try to find the opportunities and the little footholds where you can. It's not impossible, but you have to also remember that certain people want this to be discouraging. Certain people want you to think you can't do it.
My God. It's like the very people at the top. Are you telling me the people at the top don't want the people at the bottom to succeed? Is that what you're telling me?
No.
Come on. That's ridiculous.
Oh, yeah. It's just, and you know what? The thing that really blew my mind, having seen part of the top of the industry as much as I did, was that the truth about the music business is that they don't know what the fuck is going on. They really don't. They are just as clueless as everybody else. And then when something like Billie Eilish happens, they are like, what?
Yeah, she's sort of an anomaly in the pop genre.
And the thing is, too, she even had a much bigger foothold because, and this is something that people, I guess, don't talk about very much, but Phineas, her brother, was already famous. The kid was on Glee. Her parents are both actors. You know, it's like she already had an in. She just blew up in a very unsuspected way that made the whole business just turn their heads. And now what we have, just like what we had with Paramore, now what we have is a bunch of imitators coming out because now the music industry is trying to catch up and throw spaghetti against the wall until something else sticks, you know?
Right. What you just said reminded me of something that's really, really cool. And you probably already know this too, but I was reading, it was like a Billy Corgan interview, and he was telling somebody how when the Smashing Pumpkins were first like signed to like Virgin Records or something like that, at the bottom of it, it said like, this record, I mean, this contract is for this universe and any universe not yet discovered. And I was like, that's fucked up.
That actually, contract terms are hilarious because they all do say the universe.
Are you kidding me?
A lot of them say territory, the universe, or territory, the world, because it's like they have to try to cover their asses for what could ever possibly happen, you know?
We don't want you moving to Mars and making your own company. We still have the rights, even if you go to Pluto or whatever, you know?
Right. But yeah, that's crazy. Because I did see some videos too where, I mean, I don't know how true they are. I usually take things for, you know, with a grain of salt, but like it was like the pop industry now was like, record companies throwing a bunch of songwriters into a room and being like, write this song, write this hit for this person. And because I look at like the, you know, in the past you'd have like 380 songs written by Lennon and McCartney, all hits, you know. Nowadays it's like one artist has like 15 writers on it, and I'm like, what happened with this?
Yeah, no, it's all a bunch of writers and a bunch of producers, and that actually kind of clues you into kind of the work that goes into some of these songs anyway. I think Beyonce on one of her records had a lot. I mean, she co-wrote a lot of really good stuff, obviously. But, you know, they all have a lot of writers working for them, and that just kind of harkens back to the idea that it's like they might try to convince you that people do this alone, but nobody does. Nobody does. It's just simply beyond human capacity to do it by yourself. Back to the original point, I think a marketing team is an excellent idea.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Good to know. Because I've been searching for one for like this whole. I've been furloughed from my job since April, and literally since April, I've been trying to reach out to marketing teams and no luck whatsoever. And I was like, "Is this worth it?" And I'm like, "No, this is definitely worth it. I'm gonna find one, and it's gonna work for me because social media is just. I mean, it just ain't enough." So
yeah. No, it's not. It's not.
But so you had mentioned you're working on a new album.
Yes, we are. You know, and honestly, I want to come back and say I'm so glad that you guys love the EP. That really makes me very, very happy. We put a lot of work into it, and it's funny because those 3 songs tend to be the ones that people resonate with the most. Hunter has always been sort of the go-to single, but Enemies Now is a funny one because to me it's like that's like the one real heartbreak song on the record, to me anyway. Like really, really, and I was expecting, like, I don't know, people even like, I kind of qualify it as some kind of a ballad, you know, and I was like, do people even like ballads anymore? Like, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I liked it a lot.
I'm so glad, because I hear all the time people do like come to me and they be like, I cry to this song when I like need to cry. I put this song on and I'm like, Jesus, man, like
at the Enemies. Well,
yeah,
that's I wasn't gonna mention this, but I kind of felt a little teary-eyed when I was listening to that too, because it's just when you listen to the lyrics, it for some reason it's super emotional for me, and that's crazy that that's other people have the similar experience, and maybe something to it, the song.
And Steve has the emotional circumference of a rock, so
right.
Take that for what it's worth.
Take any water out of me.
I'm seriously honored by that, because that song was one that was tough to write. That was like that was the closed book on a very destructive relationship for me.
Oh,
so,
wow. I could feel like I just like, another thing I was going to mention about this album is, like, whenever I listen to albums, I look for music that transports me.
Mm-hmm.
And from the very first song, that's the first thing that popped in my head was this transports me somewhere else. And it followed through the whole, like, I listened to the whole record like that. And every time I listen to a record where it keeps me the whole time, that's going to be in my collection.
Yeah.
And especially for that particular song, that's when it really popped. It was just really kind of, it's not the last song obviously, but it was kind of like, you could tell it was nearing the end of the album. And to me, it was just like, wow, this is a super emotional song. It really got to me. And that's, I don't know. I'm a huge fan of this album.
Thank you.
Front to back.
Now let me ask you: do you consider this an album or is it an EP to you?
I keep saying album, but EP.
It's an EP because it's short. That's really the reason. And it's funny because Skin on Skin almost didn't make it in. That was actually a brand new song. I had just written it before we went in the studio, and then I kind of pushed our luck in terms of time just to make sure it got on there, because I was just really enthusiastic about it. Mm-hmm. And it ended up translating like really well to me in terms of like how the band made it feel, and I was very pleased about that. But no, we are Omens is like a big step for me as a writer and as a band leader for sure. Mm-hmm. And in terms of the new record, I am really excited and totally fucking terrified, because the studio always terrifies me. Doesn't matter how many times I go in or what it is. I have to basically remind myself all the time that, like, hey, if I hate it, we can just scrap it and do it again. Like, that's the thing I have to keep doing. But actually, I don't know if you guys can see that list on the wall.
Yes.
That is 24 songs.
Oh no, here we go.
I'm currently trying to demo to narrow this shit down. But one of these things actually does include a reimagining of Promises,
really cool,
an updated arrangement. So I'm actually pretty stoked about that. But yeah, I'm also, there's going to be a lot that goes.
So what you just said is an argument that Steve and I have all the time, because he'll say like, hey, we should do one of your old songs from your solo thing. And I was like, well, it's already recorded. It's already released. So we can't do it. And he's like, no. We can reimagine songs. And I'm like, I don't know if that's allowed, man. He's like, what are you talking about? We make the rules.
But as soon as Lee said that, I was like that. Before you even I'm a huge fan of that, like remolding songs, because Radiohead does it too. That's one. I'm sure other bands, but that's one I can think of. They have like the same song, but it's a different arrangement.
Yep.
I'm a huge fan. To me, that's like an Easter egg in the album. It's like,
it is, and I think that to be honest though, I have been against it before, and that was brought up to me just as an idea because Promises has a lot of potential as a tune in a few different areas as it was presented to me, and I ended up being convinced. But then I thought about it as well, and what's funny is that Lord, that's the first thing I thought of. Lord's first EP was not pure heroin. It was actually an EP called The Love Club, and they pull, and a good chunk of the songs on that EP were then taken from Love Club and put onto Pure Heroin. And they didn't even reimagine them, honestly. I think they just re-recorded them. The arrangements were slightly different. But to prove that people do it, people definitely do it, especially if it's one or two songs. They'll include from a former EP and put it on like a full length,
Right. Somebody asked me that too when I did our first EP. They were like, well, you going to use these songs later? And I was like, of course not, because I'm stuck up and a jerk. But so you have 24 songs. Do you look at it like now you got to cut it down to an album length or a single album length? Do you look at it as like how many songs I should have, or just what fits with each other?
Yeah, I think that right now we're going with, because our manager, 3143 management, our manager is pretty adamant about releasing a few singles first. Okay. So the idea, I think, is to cut it down to the songs that just honestly sound best with the band, and just try to take the ones that, yes, fit best together, and go from there. Because I don't really care about length in terms of albums. The fact of the matter is that people are releasing singles and EPs more than they're releasing full albums anyway. To me, it's about like the story, the potential story of the record and how strong it is, Right. And sometimes that means that a song that I think is going to be great for the band just isn't. That's happened like a lot of times where I've been playing a song by myself, I'm like, man, it's going to sound so kick-ass when we get the full arrangement. And then we do it, and I'm like, this actually sounded better when it was just me and piano.
Right.
Sometimes that happens. You just got to, go through the creative process, and you don't really know until you lay the tracks down and kind of listen to it in perspective. And
this might sound selfish of me, but like I like albums that sometimes have that. Like I think on the Who's album, mid-70s, the Who by Numbers, I think it's called. Pete Townsend had like this ukulele song that's beautiful, blue, red, and gray, something like that. And the producer was like, no, that's going on the album. He's like, but none of the guys are playing on it. He's like, I don't care. That's going on the album. And I was like, I'm glad they did it, because I was like, would you ever consider doing that? Or would it be because it's not everybody, it wouldn't be on there?
No, I think I would consider it, especially because there's one song in particular that actually a few people have asked me to play at their wedding. It's not on a record yet. And it's a song, it's like one of the only love songs I've ever written in my life. And it's called Partner in Crime. And that song, I can't imagine that it will ever need drums is part of the issue. If drums did happen, it wouldn't be until way later, until the bridge, and I think there is a place for some songs being cut down, and honestly, the thing about bands too is that people can contribute in other ways. Just because your drummer isn't playing drums doesn't mean that they can't be on a synth pad, or they can't be like doing something with percussion, or they can't be just doing something else. Yelling into a microphone.
Strong encouragement.
Honestly, like even if they're just cheerleadering or whatever, it's like, just because the instrumentation isn't everybody doesn't mean it doesn't include everyone, I guess.
Right. It's funny you mentioned the singles and EPs, because we talk about this. Steve and I can talk about this for days, because like it's true. I mean, EPs and singles are the most popular thing right now for local artists because it's more digestible. Is that it? I guess.
Attention span. People don't have great attention spans.
Right. And so we released an EP an album and an EP. And our albums are, I'm like a big Steely Dan fan. So like I love 7-song albums that are, it's 40 minutes each song. Because like, you know, for me, like Asia by Steely Dan, like there's no fat on that record. It's just, they knew everything was good. And a lot, like I could say like, you know, an album that has 19 songs on it, it's like, you probably could have cut like, you know, 7 off that and made it even better. But so this time we have 5 songs and we're like, they all fit really well together. And we have a new drummer as of November. And he made a good point. He's like, well, you had mentioned, Derek, that no one's really listening to the music. So what's the point of releasing an EP? Why don't we release this? Why don't we release them as singles? And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, what if we do a single a month with a video? And I said, that makes a lot of sense because people will actually take the time to listen to 1 song rather than 5.
They will.
But to me, I'm such an album fan. Like I'm obsessed with albums. So I'm in this really weird situation where I'm not happy.
I think, you know, it doesn't mean you can't have the album. I just think that, like, for instance, if you do the singles, single video, single video, single video, you can only do that so many times before it gets boring anyway. So basically you do that 3 times and then, you know, you have the album. You release it, you make a big to-do out of it, and then you do a couple more videos of other things that you would consider singles. But I think that it does make sense to rally around a compilation, like some kind of actual big entity. When it's just a bunch of singles, I think that people also, basically the idea is people get bored either way.
Basically you're saying there's just no way around winning.
Well, no, I think mostly it's that you can win in any way as long as you keep changing your formula just by a little bit. I think that counts a lot.
Just like the YouTube algorithms, they change a little bit every couple months.
Yeah, it's crazy, and like I keep going back to Billy Corgan. I'm a huge fan, but I listen.
Pumpkins fan. Huge.
Yeah, I'm giant, and so I listen to him all the time. And I know over the years he was like, no one listens to albums anymore, so we're gonna just release the singles every once in a while and of the entire album. And then a couple months after that, he's like, no, we're gonna make an album. And then he's like, no, we're gonna make an album within an album.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, this guy can't make up his mind. And I kind of like that because he seems like he's of this earth. He's a human trying to figure shit out still.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, I love Billy Corgan. I had everything the Smashing Pumpkins ever put out. Everything. You know, I had the Airplane Flies High box set.
I was going to ask you that.
Crazy Iscariot. I had everything up until Machina. Once they did Machina and quote unquote broke up, then I kind of stopped because they weren't a band anymore. Right. And then they became a band again. But then by that point I was like, but like, right. I realized actually in the past month how much I am influenced by them, even if it doesn't come out super, super directly in the writing. It's like the progressions, it's like, and the 90s in general, it's like, apparently Mixolydian is the only mode I care about. Like flat 7-4-1 is the only chord progression I really give a shit about. And, you know.
It's awesome.
Maybe Lydian, Alien, maybe.
No, I suddenly can't hear
your volume is bad all of a sudden, Steve.
Oh, there we go. There we go. This technology. No, I was just joking around. Maybe Lydian, throw in some Lydian.
I love Lydian because the 2 major, man. 2 majors are very real, important chord.
There's only, of all the modes, people only use like 3 anyway. Mixolydian, Ionian, obviously that's major, and Aeolian is minor, but Mixolydian, Lydian, nobody's using Locrian. Who the hell uses Locrian?
There's some guys out there using Locrian.
Nobody using Locrian.
Dorian sometimes happens, and Phrygian sometimes happens. You know, there's an Emerson, Lake and Palmer tune.
Oh, I love them.
In Dorian that I think I used for my Berkeley audition. It's called From the Beginning.
Oh, man. Come on. Great song.
And that song is super Dorian tune.
Okay. Yeah, Dorian. Yeah, that's another one.
That's off of Trilogy, isn't it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's my favorite ELP album.
Yeah, they are truly great. Yep. Yeah,
incredible. When I listen to Tarka, sometimes like halfway through it, I shut it off and I'm like, I fucking quit music.
Don't ever let them convince you to quit.
Don't ever let Keith Emerson put you down.
No, don't do it.
Exactly.
That's so good. So I'm going to ask you 2 really annoying questions.
Yes, please. And ask them while I turn on the light in here because I realized
okay. All right. They're annoying, and I just want you to answer spur of the moment because you'll probably change your mind. But it could be for you. Actually, we'll do your band.
Okay.
If your band could open for any other band in the history of music, you have one night, you're opening and the other band closes. That's the whole show. Who do you got?
Oh no! What am I gonna say for this? I don't freaking know.
I know.
Nobody knows. Everything we have.
Knows, but I'll tell you, if I could open for either Queen or fucking Led Zeppelin, I think I would die happy. I mean, I would love to open for Prince, but quite frankly, I don't think that is, like, I'm not good enough to open up for Prince. Like, nobody is, but I feel like that wouldn't be cool. I feel like if I opened for Prince, I would be taking somebody's slot that deserves it way more than I do. So it's like, I don't want to take that. So I would gladly take, not that I deserve Queen either, but I would gladly take Queen or Led Zeppelin for sure.
Get out of here!
You'd have a better chance opening for Prince than Weird Al would. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, Weird Al's a weird guy.
Does not like Weird Al. I read.
I think Prince would really like you guys. That he'd like you open for him.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's funny because I know people that were sort of mentored by him, and he apparently had a very strong history of supporting women in the business. So,
I was actually just thinking that I don't know if I mentioned, obviously but I was going to mention how you guys are an all female band, which is really cool. That's super cool, and it's like there are definitely some out there, but I feel like I don't see them as much, and it's so cool to see that. And I feel like we need to have more, all female bands.
And I'll tell you, I think it's more happening now than it ever has been. But there was, I do kind of want to make this clear because I don't really get to talk about this enough, in my opinion. And I don't always feel comfortable enough to talk about it either. But when I first started this band, there was a lot of resistance in general from both the business and in some cases from other women, because there's still such a stigma of oh, you're not going to be taken seriously if you play with other women, And I went through that myself as a formative, late teens, early 20s, just being unsure about whether I should play with women or not, because I was like, oh, I need to be taken seriously in this business. It's and that's insane, when I think about it. Being 18 and thinking that to myself, that shows you how much the culture and the business at large have damaged us.
Right.
It shows you how much we're still shedding the shitty traditions of the past, and we're not even there yet, as a culture. We're barely there yet, you know what I mean? It's ridiculous. That's still a thing. A female artist has to second guess herself whether she'll be taken seriously. That's absurd.
Yeah, it's a crazy thing. And granted, again, it's a long time ago. I certainly didn't feel this way by the time I started the band, but we definitely as a band experienced times when a bunch of dudes would just be total pieces of shit. And now thankfully I'm very tall and have spent my life being rather intimidating to people. So I possess the capacity to make dudes afraid, which helps me out sometimes. So but
that's good.
But and honestly, even when I was in Third Eye Blind, it was pretty tricky. I was the only woman who's ever played in that band in any kind of an official capacity, long term, They've had guests background vocalists, and Kimya Dawson has written a song with Steven, which is super cool. But being on stage with them every night and then seeing the fans react, some of the fans thought it was the best thing ever. And a lot of them are still fans of mine to this day. And then others, man, a lot of hating women, gotta tell you.
And I'll never understand that. I had somebody a couple years ago, a friend of mine, I guess you can call them friend, but they made a joke oh, he's come on, give me 3 good female songwriters. And I was literally okay, how about Carole King, Joni Mitchell, Laura Nyro? So maybe some of the best songwriters of all fucking time. And I'm well, I wasn't even thinking at that point. I'm you're out of your mind if you don't think there's good female songwriters. You shouldn't even be talking about music.
Yeah, and it's crazy. It's crazy that mentality even still exists out there. But I think we're getting there.
That's why I mentioned it's so cool that you guys are an all female band, because you are. It sucks that you have to have an example. You shouldn't even need the example of how they feel. But you guys are just all female. You guys are outstanding. Can compete with any fucking band out there, and I was literally blown away. And it's on top of that, it's a little cherry on top that you guys. It's just the little added bonus. You guys are all female, because to me, I think we need more of that, and you guys are doing it, and that's really cool.
You know, and I think that part of it was like people have asked me if that was like, oh, was this on purpose? And it's like, yes, like it's pretty evident, I think, that it was on purpose, but it's more about, this is always meant to be like a super group in terms of it being about having women that were on top of their just super, super special. You know, everybody who's ever been involved with this band has been incredibly, incredibly special musicians, incredibly special people. And part of it was, yeah, I think so, to try to create a group that, yes, we're all women, but that's not going to be the thing that you think about. And we want to help set the precedent that shouldn't be the thing that anybody thinks about, regardless of who's on stage, right? So trying to create power from that and then transcend it so that we can create a path by which, you know, to help people walk it. You know what I mean? And there are plenty of women who have done it way better than I ever could, but I wanted to be a part of that, you know?
No, that's perfectly said. You know,
talent is talent. Gender is irrelevant to me. I mean, it just, you know, but it's funny when you change your camera angle, you seem much more now like this is a very powerful camera angle you put yourself in.
Oh,
I just thought you should know. It's much more powerful.
It's like in movies, the cinematography.
Yeah, that was the cinematography of your angle now.
Now it's like different contrasting colors. She's doing.
Oh yeah, sure. You can actually see stuff because I had the daylight before, but that has
right.
long since gone.
For sure. So I have the second annoying question I have for you. This might be more annoying than the first one. And we always get amazing answers for this. And it's going to make you think. But spur of the moment, if you could have dinner with 3 people in history, they don't have to be music. I know it's tough, but we've gotten some crazy good answers. And, you know, I just, you know, if you can, no pressure, but pressure.
Holy shit, man. I think I've got 2 out of the 3. I'm just gonna, because I can't think about it too much or I'll lose my mind, right?
Right, yep.
Nina Simone, for sure.
Yes.
Gloria Steinem, I think, as well. Number 3, man, I don't freaking know. Oh no, what am I gonna do? Oh, this is so hard. Okay, you know what? I'm actually just gonna throw my 3rd one out there. This is totally not the right answer for, you know, anybody living or dead. It's not. But this is something in real life that I would like to have happen is Neil Gaiman. He's actually one of my favorite authors of all time. And it's funny because we have a lot of mutual friends. And I still, like, I've missed him by minutes.
Oh, gotcha.
Oh, no way.
But Nina Simone and Gloria Steinem for sure.
That's awesome.
Top of the list.
Nice.
Yeah. You think that would make a good conversation for dinner?
Oh my God, big time. I just don't like, I would just love to sit and hear Nina Simone talk.
Yeah.
Gloria Steinem, like I would just want to listen to Nina Simone. Gloria Steinem, I would like to engage in conversation.
Right, yeah. It's funny because like there's a lot of people from history that I'm like, I wish I could hear them speak and I want to hear what they have to say. And for some reason, I don't know why, I always envision Salvatore Dali being like that guy who like he's too far back where I don't know if he does interviews or ever did. And there was a show in the 70s, the Dick Cavett show. I'm sure you guys heard of it. And he's on there and he's like walking his anteater onto the set. And I'm like, this can't be real. Like I didn't know Dali was real. Like if that makes sense to you, like
a real guy.
It's like, you know, like George Washington. Like I can't picture him standing in front of me. That's not real. That's from the history books. But I saw Dali on the show and I was like, this is really fucking weird watching him like trying to speak English. But anyways, yeah, that's so cool. Nina Simone, and that would be amazing. I can't wait till this thing is over so we can come see you guys play.
Definitely.
Holy shit, that would be so freaking cool.
I can't wait to play again. Really can't wait for it. It's like, you know, a little crazy.
Do you have any gigs like booked in the future or?
You know, not really, because we only had recording happening and then the pandemic happened. We were supposed to do something at Brooklyn Bowl actually in New York, and obviously that hasn't happened. And we haven't rebooked it yet because quite frankly, we just don't know when venues like that are going to be really opening.
Right.
and I don't want to put anybody at risk. You know, the recording is going to be a little bit like dicey, like just by itself, you know, so we'll see what happens. But I'll tell you, I am doing a live stream though on Friday.
Yes.
It's presented by my company that I co-own, Harbinger Entertainment, and it's actually, I'm not going to be performing, but I will be hosting. It's called the Artists Together Roundtable live stream. It actually started because I was booked by Rockwood Music Hall to do like a set for the Furies, a live stream set. But then, you know, the date that I was booked for, obviously I booked it way, way in advance. But the day that I was booked for in June, all the protests really started to kick up for Black Lives Matter in New York. And there was a whole bunch of stuff happening. And I was like, man, I really don't feel great about like diverting any of this attention. So I kind of like seeded the platform and asked like some of my friends who are, you know, people of color, artists, to come on and either like perform or like talk about their experiences in the situation. And we raised some money for the ACLU. And then afterward, they were like, hey, you should like do this again. Like you should do it again, like on your stuff. You should like make it a thing. So on Friday, Kim Davis from Nile Rodgers and band Chic, you know, she's going to come on. And also with Rachel Jason, who's from Walter Sickert and the Army of Broken Toys, which Boston total mainstays. And my friend Shane Franklin, who goes by SF1, he's like a Colorado like artist and producer. So I'm gonna be on Friday at 8.
Nice.
Wait, I just wrote it down. Yeah, same here.
Awesome.
And my very last question for you: do you have this EP on vinyl by any chance?
Oh my God, this is okay. So I don't yet. But this has been a conversation, releasing Omens on vinyl, because sort of ahead of the next record, that's what I was talking to the manager and label about doing. So if you're interested, I'm going to use that as a point.
Yes.
Find out. The day you find out, we expect a call.
We both want one desperately.
You want one for sure. Signed. We'll pay.
And if you could sign it, yeah, definitely, please.
Yeah, totally would sign. Yeah, okay. So this definitely, I think we're definitely going to make it happen now, because we did gauge there has been positive interest, but obviously it's not like I'm asking people like, hey, do you want an Omens vinyl? Hey, do you want to?
Yeah.
Well, we want one for sure. Like the hour it goes on sale, I'll buy it.
Awesome.
Yes. It's so that's going to be part of my collection, 100%.
Yes, same here. I'm excited.
But Lee, thank you so much. This was freaking amazing. It's so nice to meet you. And really looking forward to your next album. What you're going to come out in the future. This was a blast. And
no, thank you so much, guys. You guys are really great at this. Like I want to really say, you guys are great at the conversation. You're great at playing off each other, and you ask great questions, and you're good at making people feel comfortable in interviews. You know, I've given a lot of interviews, and I haven't always been super comfortable. So.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot to us. Yeah, we try to. So yeah, this is not us putting on an act too. This is literally how we talk to each other too. So great,
awesome, guys. Just keep doing it because it's really very, very, very cool. I really enjoy it.
Oh, thank you so much.
That means
so much for having me.
Oh, thank you. And yeah, like I said, you come up with some more stuff, maybe in a month or two, whatever. If you want to come back on,
yes, please come back.
We'd love to.
We'd love to have you on again. That'd be freaking amazing.
Awesome. Yeah, we'd love to do it. Really, this is great.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much. Enjoy the rest of your night. Be safe out there, and we'll talk to you soon. Okay?
Yes. Talk to you guys soon. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Conspiracy, it's the only crutch that you have on me. The hog in the house with all his rats, we bite our thumbs and never tip our hats.